Hi, good morning. Gary DeWall here, and this is Bridging the Week, January 27th to 31st, and today is February 3rd, 2014. Happy New Year to all my friends worldwide celebrating the Lunar New Year. In fact, last week, while many in the world celebrated the Lunar New Year and the arrival of the Year of the Horse, there was no celebrations at two large financial service firms when complex computer systems they daily relied on for compliance with relevant rules turned out to be Trojan horses. This is because coding issues caused these computer systems to produce false reports that caused them significant regulatory headaches, including large fines. As usual, we have a lot to cover this week, so let's get started. Both Scottrade, a broker-dealer, and Western Asset Management, an investment advisor, settled enforcement actions with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission related to rule violations that initially derived from computer system coding errors. In its enforcement action against Scottrade, the SEC charged the firm with violating its record-keeping obligations. This is because Scottrade failed to provide the SEC complete and accurate information in response to requests for information related to possible violation of law, or so-called blue sheet requests. In 2003, Scottrade had instituted a new back-office processing system to store and provide information to the SEC and self-regulatory organizations in response to these so-called blue sheet requests. In March 2006, the firm implemented a code change to this program. However, this code change, which the SEC acknowledged was inadvertent, caused Scottrade to fail to report to the Commission certain types of trades from March 2006 through April 2012, causing a blue sheet misreporting. This misreporting occurred on over 1,200 times. The problematic trades were trades that had been transferred from Scottrade's customers to its own error accounts because the trades had resulted from trading errors or had been deemed fraudulent. For its violations, Scottrade agreed to pay a fine of $2.5 million and to retain an independent consultant to assess the adequacy of and make recommendations regarding the firm's policy and procedures regarding blue sheet submissions. In the other computer coding cause enforcement action, Western Asset Management was charged by the SEC with various violations of the Investment Advisors Act, including a prohibition against fraud and a requirement that managers maintain policy and procedures to avoid violations of law. In this matter, Western Asset's offense related to the initial allocation of securities from a private placement to accounts of various retirement plans subject to the Employee Retirement Security Act, or ERISA, contrary to offering restrictions by the issuer. Western Asset did not take prompt action to correct its mistakes, nor notify the affected retirement plans until months after it liquidated the securities from their accounts. After Western Asset purchased securities in a private placement in early 2007, a compliance officer made changes regarding the nature of the issuer's security on the firm's automatic compliance system. However, this change automatically changed the designation of the security to ERISA eligible, when in fact it was not. Thereafter, Western Asset continued to purchase the relevant issuer security for its customers' account, including more than $90 million worth for 99 ERISA accounts. More than a year later, Western Asset recognized its error. However, it did not liquidate the security or notify the relevant accounts until almost 2 years after the initial incident. Moreover, it did not reimburse the ERISA accounts for losses sustained as a result of the liquidation. In connection with its settlement, Western Asset agreed to pay $10 million to the harmed customers, $1 million fine to the SEC, and $1 million fine to the Department of Labor in connection with a separate enforcement action brought regarding the same matter. By the way, Western Asset is a subsidiary of Legg Mason. Looking overbroad, in connection with its transition management services, the UK Financial Conduct Authority has fined two State Street UK entities $22.9 million Great Britain pounds, or 37.9 million US dollars, for developing and executing, quote, a deliberate and targeted strategy to charge substantial markups on certain transitions in addition to the agreed management fee or commission that were deliberately not agreed with clients or disclosed to them, end of quote. As a result, 6 customers were overcharged over 20 million US dollars as a result of transitions undertaken on their behalf between June 2010 and September 2011. The Financial Conduct Authority claimed that during the relevant period, State Street entities failed to take reasonable care to ensure that relevant documentation, the trading process, or communications with clients were adequately monitored. The Financial Conduct Authority attributed this to the State Street Group's matrix management framework. Apparently, after an individual client identified certain non-agreed markups on certain trades, the management of the State Street Group directly overseeing this business claimed the mistakes were inadvertent and paid a substantial rebate on the basis for those trades. However, the managers failed to disclose the existence of other improper markups to the same client, State Street UK Compliance or State Street UK Senior Management. Subsequently, managers outside the group raised concerns, and an internal investigation was conducted, problems found, and rebates or offers of rebates provided to all impacted customers. Ouch. Back to the United States, the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority fined Banorte X Securities International, a broker-dealer, $475,000 US for not having adequate anti-money laundering procedures and not registering between 200 and 400 foreign finders dealing with Mexican clients. More significantly, FINRA also suspended the firm's former anti-money laundering and chief compliance officer for 30 days in a principal capacity. According to FINRA, because of the firm's failure, the firm, among other matters, opened an account for a corporate customer owned by an individual with reported ties to a drug cartel without investigating or reporting the rapid movement in a short period during 2010 of large amounts of US dollars in and out of the account. FINRA claimed that Banorte and Mr. Sims did not adopt AML policies and procedures that were particularized to the firm's business. Instead, they used off-the-shelf procedures. They did not enforce the firm's AML program, and they did not detect certain suspicious activities despite reviewing all security transactions and wire transfers. Back to London, the Financial Conduct Authority banned Anthony Verrier, the former executive managing director and general manager responsible for BGC's London and European officers, from any regulated activity in the financial services industry because of his role and conduct in an employee recruiting raid on an interdealer broker competitor, Tullett Prebon. This all occurred during 2009. The FCA claimed that Mr. Verrier is not fit and proper because of concerns over his integrity. Prior to joining BGC, Mr. Verrier was Tullett's second most senior executive. Mr. Verrier joined BGC during January 2009 and then proceeded to recruit a substantial number of Tullett employees. The means, claims the FCA, were unlawful and included, quoting a high court that adjudicated a suit by Tullett against BGC, quote, the inducement of the employees to breach their contracts with Tullett by leaving early without justification, end of quote. According to the High Court, during the litigation, quote, Mr. Verrier stuck to the truth where he was able to, but departed from it with equanimity and adroitness where the truth was inconvenient, end of quote. There's a real reason why I love English literature. Last week, Benoit Poiré, a member of the executive board of the European Central Bank, discussed, quote, some unintended side effects that need to be addressed, end of quote, related to the reliance on central clearing counterparties post the 2008 financial crisis. He did this in a presentation before the Office of Financial Research and Financial Stability Oversight in Washington, D.C. Although Mr. Poiré acknowledged many accepted benefits of clearing, he noted that the rise in central clearing is leading to a number of side effects, including risk concentration within CCPs that are causing them to become, quote, institutions of unprecedented systemic importance, end of quote. Mr. Quaret also warned that access to CCPs may be limited to a, quote, few large global intermediaries, end of quote. According to Mr. Quaret, quote, a factor contributing to this concentration may be higher compliance burdens where only the very largest of firms are capable of taking on cross-border activity. This concentration creates a high degree of dependency on this small group of firms, end of quote. Although Mr. Quaret supports the trend towards central clearing, quote, it strikes me, however, that further efforts are needed to be able to cope with CCP default, to address risks associated with changes in market structures, and to remove cross-border differences in regulation where needed, end of quote. To me, this is a very important speech by a very distinguished government official. Although Mr. Quaret articulates the many well-acknowledged benefits of central clearing, he discusses too many of the risks of the global march towards central clearing, including the concentration of global market risk among just a few CCPs, and the possible evolution to there being just a few clearing members, causing problems of access for others than the most commercially attractive end clients. His concerns are well worth considering. And finally, BNP Paribas agreed to an enforceable undertaking with the Australian Securities and Investment Commission and made a quote-unquote voluntary $1 million Australian dollar contribution to fund financial literacy programs in Australia related to possible misconduct in connection with its role in settling the Australian bank bill swap rate and Australian benchmark interest rate at various times from 2007 to 2010. Well, that's a lot, as usual. Until next week, this is Gary DeWaal, and this has been Bridging the Week. And again, Happy New Year to those celebrating. Ciao!